Welcome back to the Making a Multi-Million-Dollar Medspa podcast, where we have real conversations about what it takes to run a successful business. Thank you for joining us as we share our day-to-day successes and, even more importantly, failures and mistakes. Listen in as we host some of our peers, colleagues, and other experts in the field. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Welcome to Season 4 of the Making a Multi-Million-Dollar Medspa podcast. This season promises to be a fan favorite with exceptional guests, valuable insights, and a new host. Each guest will be participating in 2 episodes. The first, like the one you're listening to right now, introduces the guest, helps you get to know them, and identifies their area of expertise. Listen to each episode and submit any questions you have to the guest to answer. Your questions will be used to create the Part 2 follow-up episode that will be added to our e-courses. Questions can be submitted through Instagram, via email, or at the link in our show notes. We hope you'll join us and share some of your questions along the way. Now on to the episode. All right, welcome back, you guys. Today I'm so excited to have Dr. Jay Burns. He's been a dear friend of mine for many years. And over the past couple years, I have had so many opportunities to work with him. And I've got a lot of, favorite things about those opportunities. But when I look at his career, I think I know just a small fragment of what he's done. And so I'm curious to hear from you, Dr. Burns, what are some of, maybe 1 or 2 of your favorite projects that you've been part of? You've worked with so many technology companies, developing technology and then speaking for those companies for years, sharing all of the information and kind of tricks and tips and pearls. You've worked with product companies. You've developed so many product lines. You've built practices. So I'm just curious, out of all the product or projects you've been part of, is there 1 or 2 that kind of stand out in your mind?
Yeah, I think there was. It was interesting. I just got back from ASLMS, in your favorite city, I think, besides Kansas City. I had a great, I've thought about it because you get older, you think about, you look back and down memory lane more times than you care to sometimes. But I had this great opportunity to see Rox Anderson in the hall, and so, it was all funny. You go through these things in your career where, you go to the meetings and you're young and, you look at all the people with these badges all the way down they've been president of this and that and the other. And then all of a sudden, mine got long and I was kind of proud of it and whatever. And then I thought, to heck with that. That seems kind of prideful and crazy. And so I don't really wear those. I told Rox, I said, if I had to wear one thing, I'd probably just make one up myself and that it just said FOR and friend of Rox because I went to I'm getting to your answer, but it's a typical Texan. I'm getting there kind of circuitously, but the point is how I got started in lasers and everything, as some may have heard me say, was there was a very prominent plastic surgeon that was coming up in Boston, and he got cancer and passed away. And there was kind of a void, and they were looking for a new plastic surgeon. And I was young, and so Jeff Dover gave me I was a friend of Milton Wayner. He introduced me to Jeff Dover, and they had a big meeting in Harvard. Used to have a huge meeting there every year. I came and I went and I met Rox, and for whatever reason, Rox befriended me, and he put me on the first scientific advisory board for laser hair removal, and the Ruby laser, that big beast that heats up a city block. But I did that. But I would tell you, so my answer is this, is that through that, I think that I must have done enough to stay on those boards, but Rox would was at the center of everything back in, the late 80s and 90s. Most things were coming out of Harvard and Rox's lab, and they always wanted a plastic surgeon. So Rox, would always put my name up. And then eventually I think I did enough to warrant getting on those things. But I would tell you, working with that advisory board for Cool Sculpting, I was with that company several years before it even came to market. It was the giants of the field, the Susie Kilmer, the people that we'll have on this podcast eventually, Susie Kilmer, Roy Geronimus, Jeff Dover, Rox. I'm going to leave somebody out, Vic Ross. If I've left anybody out, forgive me, but I've been so many of them. And that group of people actually, give or take one or two, that group of people actually brought Cool Sculpting to market, worked on all the things, got FDA approval. It's the same group that was at mostly for the Reliant, where it brought Fraxel and the Fraxel Dual to market, all of that, which was an amazing breakthrough, I thought. And we did Ulthera, Thermage, even though Thermage didn't it's still around, and it's got its issues, but God, we worked hard, and I learned so much about electricity and radio frequency, and it's all those things. I look back on it has set my, it's given me a basis for understanding, because Rox would bring in the best technical minds in the world, and we'd study Ohm's law, and I'd have to get more old fashions at night, and it was just rather crazy. But anyway, the point is, all those things turned out to be good. So I loved the people and the relationships, and I still have those today. And quite honestly, I learn, I realize I'm in a little bit of an ivory tower because I can learn from the meetings, but man, it's the dinners that I still have with Rox and Roy and Jeff and Susie and Vic and James Bartholomew's and Hobart and those guys that I've just been so blessed after 35 years to be able to, call them up on the phone and say, hey, I've got a technical problem. But I don't know if I answered it, but just that the way I'm wired is it really scratched an itch for me, because if I get up on a podium, I think most people that are successful have a fear of failure, and you think it's crazy, but I still have.
I mean, I'm raising my hand for those.
I still have it. I just don't want anybody. I just feel like there's other smarter people than me in the audience, and I don't want to get embarrassed. And so I've got to know everything about it. The story has to make sense. Yeah, I don't know if I've answered your question, but that's been great. I'd say Fraxel and Cool Sculpting were probably, from a technological side, they were really a breakthrough. The fractional resurfacing and then body contouring, and still today, I'm going to talk more about it, but Cool Sculpting is still, I think, the best approach to fat there is. There's other technologies out there, and they've got a bad rap the last 2 or 3 years. And really, I don't think too much fault of their own, to be honest with you. I think they've handled it in an exemplary way. And I'm one that will, if Allergan has a problem, I'll tell you about it, whatever. But I don't think Cool Sculpting is one of those. And I think pH is way blown out of proportion. I'm on there's 3 or 4 people in the country that sees every pH issue that comes through the world. I defended them. And I'm telling you, I think they handled it great. And so I think it's a shame that some people are hesitant to get Cool Sculpting now, because it's probably one of the safest things we do, Kathy. And it's 1 in 3,000 issues, and it's a solvable problem. I mean, I don't think there's a laser I have that you could treat people 3,000 times and not have a small issue.
No, I will agree 100% with you. I mean, I look at what our revenue, our top 3 producers, and Cool Sculpting is always up there.
Yeah.
And, we've been doing it for years and have treated so many people.
Yeah,
and
totally.
I can count on one hand, complications, or even just really kind of even including upset clients. I think, of course, you have to set up patient expectations from the start, but it's tried and true. And I agree 100% with that.
Yeah, I agree.
So is that one of your top technologies, or your top technology? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that
top.
Now, did you say one of the top technologies for the future? Is that what you said?
Even today.
Yeah, it is. I do believe it is. I think in the body contouring arena, the Cool Sculpting is still our number one. I do think that there's some technologies that combine that, like the M-Sculpt Neo that has I think there's some advantages from a functional standpoint. I think that you know, I've always said from the start, you know, I went on the road and talked about Cool Tone before they put the hiatus on that as well. But I learned a whole lot about MMS, and I never was very impressed with the before and afters. What I was impressed with was the functionality. If you look at the patients on that, in terms of having them feel better and feel their core stronger and things like that, there's real value there. And for athletes, for old people who need to get up out of a chair and those kind of things, I think that's where we can add to that. And so, you know, we're combining so many things now. I would say that we're going to talk in a minute, I think, about what excites me for the future. And I think one of those things is that we're just combining so many things right now. And it's different because we did that. You know, remember this. I don't want to get, you know, chase every squirrel today, but my point is we'll come back to that because, you know, we tried to combine therapies around the year 1998 to 2002. And I didn't think it worked very well at all. And I think I have a reason for that. But now it works really, really well. And that's one of the things I'm excited about. But in terms of the technologies, I would definitely think in our practice right now, there is no question that body contouring, cool sculpting is still our number one. We may add you know, a magnet. As you know, I've gone from being senior partner to the biggest group in the world to solo practice, and I have to buy stuff now, which is just really disappointing. But so we probably will add something like that because I think there's value. But in terms of the laser side, there is no question the revolution of BBL Hero and Moxie it's just our bread and butter. I just don't know how I don't know how clinics, if they don't have it, they're just missing the boat. They really are.
But think about, I mean, honestly, when it came out, you know, even step back to Halo, when Halo came out, and we have had it here for, you know, a few months, kind of helping develop protocols and things with Doug Caro, who works with Sciton.
Yeah, totally.
And I kept saying, no, but we've got BBL and ProFrac, a micro laser pill, and it just works, you know? And,
totally.
you know, of course, I didn't really get it until I had the Halo treatment. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it. It's so much easier. And I did the same thing with Moxie. And so I think, you know, I'm probably not the only one out there that's done that. And now I look at, I actually did just a quick little pop-up podcast for Moxie a little while ago and looked at the revenue that we had done over a 3-month period of time. And in 3 months, we did over 170,000 in Moxie. And, you know, 3 of our top performers had done 20,000 apiece, just a little over 20,000 each. And, you know, and I feel like it's still revving up. I feel like, you know, it's going to start to move more to the neck and the chest and the arms as you know, we get better and better with it. And more clients are also being exposed to it and then having time to say yes to it. And so again, I feel like we're just kind of still at the low side of the hill as we're shooting up. You know, I think it's just going to grow. So I agree. And the combo of BBL and Moxie is just crazy good.
Yeah, so I think that you know, I think that we ought to come back to that and, you know, how we use Moxie, and I'm sure you use the same thing. I mean, you and I are people should know that we bounce things off each other all the time, and I'm always getting a text from Matt or you, or I'm sending you a text or whatever. So we're just really trying to talk about what we've learned, and certainly I would say that we all were looking for BBL Hero, right? That was the buzz, the whole thing, and it clearly has met all the expectations I had and more, because I didn't really expect it to be. I was looking at it to go off face, but I didn't realize that we could get so many more pulses per treatment in that period of time, that the face is just so much better with the Hero. And then it did all the things on the body we wanted it to. But, you know, I think that's why it's great. You know, a lot of us, a lot of my colleagues, I don't think I've ever really done this because I work so closely with industry, and I know the people, they get a bad name, and they, you know, evil because they charge us for the freaking lasers and they charge us for the, you know, the disposables. And, you know, I want them, if they don't succeed, Kathy, we don't get new technology. And
Right.
so they think differently than I do. And I just didn't understand why they needed to put, the thulium on the hero in the Moxie thing. And now the thing that I would tell you is I just don't know how we would live without a Moxie. We bought one or two more devices because we use it with everything. It's like the add-on to every treatment we do that adds this instant polish. It's this instant gratification. It works for dark skin types that we've never been able to treat before. It treats the legs that are a little resistant to the browns when we're doing BBL Hero. It's a treatment standalone by itself. If you want to do a light treatment and you want to look great in 3 days for a wedding or an event, it's just so ubiquitous. And the halo has its role, and we could talk about that, but and we still love it. It's still great, but there's more downtime. And I, having had, if you follow me on my Instagram stuff, I've had, I got a hero yesterday. I'm here talking. That's the great thing about it. There's nobody, my wife didn't really even notice it, but it makes a difference.
Hey listeners, don't forget to submit your questions for the second part of this series. All of your questions will be answered by the guests on the second part of their episode. Okay, get back to listening.
It's changing my genes, even as we're talking on this podcast, scientifically proven. But I've also had the Halo combined with the Moxie, the Hero combined with the Moxie, and it's great for me because I can, I'm experiencing it myself, so I can tell my patients that, so that they all have a place, and we can sort that out at another day on on Mint, in terms of all the things that we do together on our premium channel, and we're going to talk about that as well. But today I think we're hitting the highlights, and I'm probably getting off topic, but
no, it was great. I just didn't, I think, when we look at, well, number one, I have to say that, you mentioned how you met this group of people years ago that have, you've just kind of, I'm going to say, like, for me, I have grown up with, I'm getting to experience all these different technologies, grow a practice with, grow my business with, grow my family, all of these pieces of my life. And, I always, often when I'm speaking for Sciton or other companies, I often, I'm talking about culture and team building. And one of the things I'll mention is build this type of team as well. When you go to the meetings, go to the dinner. If you're shy, go to the dinner anyway. Make a new friend, go to the happy hours. Even if you don't drink, grab a water. I think it's just so impactful long term to build a group of people that I can text you and say, hey, Jay, what do I do here? What would you do here? Without that, that's invaluable.
Exactly right. It's a really good point. I've never really thought about that, but it's great advice because little known fact is we all have people that we've met as friends who have become super friends. I just got an email right before this from one of my colleagues, a dermatology colleagues in South Africa. He met me at ASLMS 25 years ago, hosted me over there, went to South Africa, best trip of my life. He always comes and visits me when he comes over. And we have this communication. I have people all over. It might be an esthetician from Portland or an extender from Maine or whatever it is, but they have consistently shown up at my lectures or at a dinner where I've been spoken. They've come up and introduced themselves, and that consistency over time, I know who they are. I know their names. We're all totally happy to help them. And really most of them don't. In fact, I can't think of anybody that just totally has abused that thing. So I think that that's a really good thing to say, hey, look, go up, introduce yourself, tell them you like the lecture, you appreciate it, you had a question. We all have pride, and we love love to be heard, and we love to wax eloquent and tell you what we think. And, at home, Jenny just tells me to take out the trash. So,
Yeah.
it's, so, so, uh, so, so
Yeah.
it's a good thing. It's a good
Yep.
thing to do. So that's a
I
really
ran
good
soccer
thought.
practice last night, so there you go.
There you go.
Well, so I wanted to point that out because again, it's just meeting other people in our industry, right? And one other thing I wanted to say is, we have no one is paying us to talk about Icon in this podcast. We have no ads running. We have no, they're not our sponsors, anything like that. Like you and I are talking about technology we love because we love it and we use it every day. Our team loves it. Our clients love it. And so I just want to say that because I think that's really important that we are only talking about this because we truly believe in it. And so, I know we've talked about cool sculpting. You've mentioned Hero. You've mentioned, Moxie. What are the three technologies you couldn't live without?
Well, certainly the Hero Moxie I couldn't live without. I think the cool sculpting I couldn't live without. Interesting. I think some type of a basic. Well, let me do it this way. For example, if you started I think you would want to add the three technologies you couldn't live without first in your clinic. So as simple as this is, we've got several hydrofacial machines. They keep your skin clean. People, I'm a surgeon, so it's taken me a long time. If it doesn't hurt and cause a lot of downtime and cause this amazing result, then we feel like it's a waste of time. And that's totally not true. And especially when you start getting these treatments, hydrofacials keep your skin clean, and they get the debris, off post halo, in 4 or 5 or 6 days or whatever. And so our hydrofacial machines or whatever your machine is, there's other ones out there. I happen to think that's a really great machine, and we use it and all the time. That's when and it's not like it doesn't cause these dramatic things. It's almost like, it's certainly more effective than a massage, but we get massages all the time, and it's a baseline for, you just have to have one of those, in my opinion, to go along with good skin care and good skin treatment and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then the second thing would be the Hero Moxie, because that would be that M-Jewel device is something that everybody can be treated with. And, we now have the studies. I have a little slide deck that has, 6 or 8 slides talking about 2 studies. One that shows that it changes our genetic structure to keep the young genes active and the old genes shut down. And then the other study that Bitter and Posner did about the long-term results. And you show people that are 10 years out and their skin looks better if they just keep doing 3 BBLs a year. So every single person on the planet, maybe really dark skin of color is problematic with BBL, to some degree. But outside of that, everybody ought to have 3 BBLs a year. I mean, scientifically, if you could do it and afford it and people want to take care of their skin, and then the Moxies helps polish everything. So the M-Jewel, the hydrofacial, and then a lot of people, and then I would say probably cool sculpting, that we've talked about that for body contouring. If there was a next one, I think that, and maybe we'll talk about that a little bit today, but I've spent a ton of time on understanding. When I don't understand something, it drives me crazy. And so you can imagine with my mental capacity, I'm driven crazy all the time. But I usually, if I spend enough time on it, I can get my arms around it and then explain it to people. And I really believe that radio frequency microneedling is just this chaotic thing that no one really understands. And I've spent a lot of time with it. I've had my name on about 9 papers with radio frequency, and I've gone through 4 or 5 devices. And I do believe that something that tightens skin, and I really don't know that we're tightening skin, Kathy. I think that we're probably volumizing skin because we're putting new collagen in little deep dermal bites, but there's really only a couple that I think do what radio frequency microneedling says they do, and that's put collagen deep in the skin. So I think that would be the next thing I would add. And I love the Genius we're talking about. I just love that device because it's, none of these are perfect. You're never going to get a home run like you do a facelift. And I think when you start talking about tightening like a facelift, it's just manipulative marketing and it's not good.
I really struggle with that one. And I love how you said volumizing.
Yeah, I think it volumizes and it looks tighter. So if we call it tightening or volumizing, I don't know. But of all the radio frequency devices, I can tell you that if it's not either Profound or Genius right now, it's just hot needles. So if you have a fractional device, then you don't need a radio frequency if you don't have, because Genius and Profound are the only ones that actually measure. You've got a needle in the skin. Mm-hmm. Most companies, 90% of companies, put a needle in your skin and don't measure impedance or temperature. And so they're missing the boat. It costs money. It requires technology, but there are companies that do it. So to me, those are two devices and that's a device that I would think about if you're going to tighten skin. Yeah.
Oh, guess what? We called you and we bought it.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
We had demoed multiple as well. And I think just honestly, the downtime of Profound and kind of the whole experience of it was a little much for our clinic. We don't have a surgeon on staff all day, every day. I think just, when you look at different types of practices, those are also things to consider. A plastic surgery clinic, a dermatologist, a med spa. And it was just, that experience was a little too much for us, but we do love Genius.
Right.
And I have found, there are certain settings and areas that are a little bit more uncomfortable. I mean, we've got plenty of technologies that we're dealing with something like that. But I would just say, what do you do to help your clients get through the treatment or keep them more comfortable?
Perfect. This is really important. And I think that I could run down the lists of Genius. Now, Kathy, you and I know that, maybe we do one of these updates every year or so, but right now, today, Genius is best, in my opinion, because it measures impedance. It has the sharpest needles in the market. It has a handpiece that senses the pressure and puts it into the proper depth. And it has a Genius technology that adjusts the energy based on the impedance so that you don't get it so hot that you create a vacuole. Once you create a vaporization in the tissue, you don't have a current anymore, so you're not doing anything. Mm-hmm. So with all that being said, Genius consistently delivers what it says it's going to deliver. It delivers a uniform heated collagen to 55 to 62 degrees in the skin. All right. So how do you treat, this is one of the things that I'd learned later on, that if I had this conversation with Kelly yesterday, who you know incredibly well. She's always my esthetician who's always asking for, to help me understand this, that, and the other. And she said, if I treat somebody with a laser with less energy for longer, is it the same? And the answer usually is no, because you have to get up to a certain level to get an effectiveness, okay? But with Genius, if you turn the energy down, you may not get as big of an area of injury, but you will get a smaller area of injury. And the point is, if you go over it longer with smaller areas, the total volume, if you can get, let's say you want to get to, 15 kilojoules or 100 kilojoules or whatever your total is, if you can get to that number, you've given them a good treatment. So if we have somebody that doesn't tolerate it, Genius is one of the few technologies where you can turn it down. Mm-hmm. And even if you got half the volume and it was tolerable, you treat them twice as long. And so I get it. It will actually give you the same result. And I don't think many people know that about that technology. And so you can turn that machine down and get smaller areas of injury, and it's much more tolerable. And if you you don't have to do it for everybody. So let's say you had 10% of people that couldn't tolerate it, you'd be willing to spend twice the time to give your patients good result and value and whatever. So that's why there's a million reasons I like that technology. That's how we get through the pain.
It's kind of like the concept of putting in, instead of 10 wide candles in a cake, you're putting in, maybe 20 or 100 really, really, really tiny, narrow candles, and they come out. So you've got these tiny zones of injury versus like a big, thick candle and only 10 go in.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And that's a great analogy. And I just, so that's how we handle that device. Also the other thing I would say is that we also, do a couple of things. There is a difference between 30 minutes of topical numbing and an hour of topical.
Oh, yes.
And so for all of our Genius, our RF microneedling devices, they get an hour and 15 minutes. And it's just, we have I think you have your new massage chairs, and
they've shipped. They have not arrived yet. Yeah. Have you hit a wall when it comes to figuring out the right management strategies and marketing promotions for your clinic? Those feelings of overwhelm and uncertainty don't mean you're failing. You just need the right tools. Mint Aesthetics is hosting a management and marketing group training event on November 15th and 16th to support attendees in their search for processes and strategies that align with their clinic. Join the immersive session to get the tools you need to take your clinic to the next level. The training event will be a collaborative training process of identifying your clinic's needs and seeing how Aesthetic Care's successful processes can be adapted to work for you. To be clear, this isn't going to give you a copy and paste solution. You'll connect with the identity of your practice, clarify your goals, and determine where you want to take your clinic. Our team will simply be there to support you on that journey. Ready to get started? Register today at mintaesthetics.com/group training. We hope to see you soon in Kansas City.
Yeah, I can't wait till you get them, because the point is that people do not mind waiting. When they have the massage chair, it relaxes them, and I think it puts them in that's one of our little pearls of service. But I think you'll love it, and you just got to get Matt out of him. I'm sure you'll find him. If you don't find him, he'll be in there. But
he will be.
I do think it's crazy, though. I meant to say a minute ago, my favorite all-time picture of Matt is after he got his profound treatment. That's the greatest picture ever.
I knew he had said that to you when I was saying that. I thought, I wonder if he remembers that.
No, he's literally unrecognizable.
People think that it's a filter.
Yeah, I know.
No, that is his face.
I know. It's crazy.
Oh my gosh. Well, I just want to shift gears a little bit. You brought up Kelly, one of your estheticians, who I absolutely love, just like salt of the earth, just such an amazing person. And, I've had the opportunity to meet a number of your team members, and I just, you've created such a beautiful culture within your team. And we often get asked, so many questions about management and building a team and hiring and retaining and creating an environment that your team wants to come back to every day, right? And so, what are a few things that you think are, essential for whether it's building a culture or just overall management of a practice?
Okay. So I'm going to tell you some things that we probably talked about, and then I'm going to say for the end something new that I don't know if you know about it or not, but I think you're going to love it. Which have very few things that I bring to you. I get them usually from you, but I do think the culture is super important. I think that there's very few, I'd still like to be 35, but there are some advantages of being 65, and that's just time. And you realize that time becomes so much more important, and you realize that you shouldn't have to put up with chaos, and simplicity is a wonderful thing. It's wonderful when you get old, but I tell you, there's no reason you can't have it when you get young. And it's just a matter of we've talked about that. There's a great book called Boundaries, and I run a full-time ministry for families with addiction. And the point is, families like that have to have boundaries. You have to have your no be no, your yes be yes. And it's true in your practice. People want a safe place. And if you can define that we're not going to tolerate this, we're not going to tolerate, it has to start from the top. I'm not going to tolerate patients abusing you and my staff. And instead of you telling your staff, I did that for the first 10 or 15 years as a young man, don't let that patient come back. Well, that creates even more problems. That puts the onus on them. Stand up and go, no, you know what? We're not a good fit. It's an awkward conversation. But the minute that patient walks out the door, your staff goes, this is a place where I feel safe, that I don't have to put up with people like that. I feel heard. And so I think that that's one thing that you can do every day in leadership. And I know that you and Matt, you beat that into me, and it wasn't hard to beat it into me because I really believed it anyway. But that was, the customer comes second, putting your staff first, because it's not just about, when they walk into the office, and you've said that, Matt, I've heard him say it 1,000 times. I want this to be a place that they want to work. And I really, so I really create a lot of the cultural things. I mean, it's a passion of mine, but I've implemented a lot of the things that you've said. And I really believe when you walk into Resurrect Skin MD, our patient, you can feel it. It's like, I don't have any drama anymore. And if I do, I will get rid of it. Life's too short. So and you have to proactively think about where you want to go. I think that, I think passivity, I think you need proactivity and clarity. I think that you need to think about where you want to go. If I want a clinic where I want it to be joyous when the people walk in the door, where patients are heard, where it looks like everybody's happy, if that's your goal, then you got to hire the right people. You got to model it for them, that you're going to protect them, that you're going to, if you have a purpose and a mission statement. Before I opened my new practice, I think I've told you, we spent a whole weekend together. I mean, I kind of knew where I wanted to go, but I asked the right questions, and I didn't manipulate it, but I let the team shape that mission statement. And it's something that we use every single day, bringing skin to life with science, care, and compassion, and they all know it. Anyway, we have a purpose and a mission, and I think that really helps with I think that helps with can you still hear me okay?
Yep, I can.
Good.
I think with the overall feeling for sure. And I just love how you said, the simplicity and just having the awkward conversations. And, I think like certain people, Matt certainly doesn't love that, but I will say he definitely taught me, like, do it quicker.
Yeah.
And because it's going to be awkward if it's right now, or if it's in 5 days or 5 months or 5 years. So why wait?
Yeah.
Like, why wait to have it? Whether it's with your team member, whether it's with the client, whether it's with your spouse.
Yeah. Totally. No, totally.
But it's like, just have it and get it done with, so you can move on and have that joy again, and have that safe space for your team, that they know that you're there supporting them and backing them. And so I just think that that's so important. As I've got older, I don't always succeed at that, but I really try to do it as quickly as possible.
I agree with that. And I'm gonna tell the listeners here a couple of things. Like, for example, you and I are involved in Cosmetic Physician Partners. And so we have benchmarking of 20 clinics. And so what's really interesting is, and we've never talked about this, but like we'll have a good, no, it's good. You're a part of it. The point is that when we want to institute a new idea, a new campaign to try to figure out how we reduce the one and dones or increase our retention rate or do those things. First of all, we can now manage with data, which is a whole nother value we can talk about in terms of management. But the point is that we can't implement that in every one of our clinics. And our CEO said, we can do it in your clinic, we can do it in Matt and Kathy's clinic, and we can do it in a couple of others. And this doesn't mean for any CPP partner that's listening that it's, a negative thing, but we're trying to build culture. Why it's so important is that you can come into my clinic and we can institute anything because they trust me. Mm-hmm. They trust each other. They know that I've got their best interest. This is going to help us. I'll explain it to them, and it takes 2 seconds. I mean, we were going to change products, and that's just not easy to do with estheticians and extenders who love this other. And I came in and said, this is our issues. This is the data, and we're going to change. And it was so amazing that in 2 minutes, they went, Okay, makes sense. Let's try that. And so culture matters. And so now we're the clinic that can actually institute this and benefit from instituting these really good ideas. Where if you've got a clinic that's got chaos and a manager that's causing issues and an esthetician who feels entitled, I mean, that just puts a barrier to everything you're trying to
So
do.
much growth. Yes. And I think one thing that I just thought of when you're talking about that, I've always looked at you and your clinic as, you're just the most excellent in terms of products and treatments and care of clients, because not only does it drive you crazy that you want to know how it works and how to do it, but you've always been such a good teacher.
Well,
And I was exposed to that years ago at meetings and listening to you speak, which is why people follow you and come up and want to, but you always have, and you've been so willing to do that. So many speakers and physicians and clinic owners just like want to hold everything they know so close. Like if I share it, I'm not going to do as well financially or something. I don't know why they do that, but you've been so great at learning it so well yourself. And then you launch it to your team, right? So when you launch it to your team, they know you've researched it. They know you have figured it out. They know they're going to be taught how to do it right, so that they can have the confidence to do it, so that their clients, your clients, trust and believe in them. And I feel that a lot. I always tell my, I'm like, keep it simple, stupid. Like, and two, like, I don't ever want to offer something that I don't know, I'm not confident in. And I would never want to say, hey team, do this, and they don't know how to do it, because I want them to have that confidence. So, you've always done that so well. And I can see that that's at least one part, not only, this amazing culture that you've created, but that's part of your culture. It's this culture of excellence. It's a culture of learning. It's a culture of teaching. So,
well, thank you. That's why it's so easy to get me on a podcast, because I love the way that you encourage me. That's fantastic. So thanks for the word.
Seriously, okay.
Hey, I do have one more thing that if this is for the benefit of the people listening, I have learned something new, and it fits in with culture and it fits in with marketing a little bit, and we haven't discussed it yet, so I'm just going to throw it out to you. Have you ever heard of the StoryBrand concept?
The StoryBrand concept.
Okay, perfect. I love it. Finally, I beat you to the punch on one thing. Kathy, you are going to flip over this concept. Okay, so it's a guy named Donald Miller. He is an author, and he's written a book called The StoryBrand. And his concept is that the world is loud and chaotic and unclear, but a story clarifies things. If you can put things into a story, and it'll ruin you if you read the book for every movie you read, because they're all the same. And it's one of the most fascinating books I've ever read. And I showed it to our marketing team at CPP, and they have flipped. We brainstormed for 2 hours yesterday. So here's the deal. Every story has 7 elements. Mm-hmm. A character is the hero of the story. Think about any movie you've seen. A character has a problem and meets a guide who gives them a plan, who calls them to action that leads to either success or failure. And that's the 7 concepts of a StoryBrand. So how does that?
I think I can actually remember that already.
Yeah. So here's the deal. Where people make their mistakes on their website, right? They make themselves, here's the key, they make themselves the hero of the story. Our patients are the hero. We are their guides to lead them to success or failure. And when you look at websites now, I saw a website the other day that was the moment. I know that website cost $50,000. And the guy sent it to me. I know I know him. He wants me to give to this thing he's doing. And when I looked at the website, I go, nobody on the freaking planet knows what you're doing. Mm. And the clarity is when they go to your website, they need to know what you're doing within 5 seconds, or you're going to lose a lot of people. So we've changed our landing page to restoring beauty and giving confidence. and it holds them there for a second to where we can tell the story. Now, we're still working on that, but here's the point about culture. We could go on this forever and get on a goose chase. You're going to flip about it when you read the book. But the point is that it changes things when you are their guide. You're getting them, you determine in a consult where they want to go, what leads to success and failure. And it's a narrative, it's a story. And it takes the mission statement that I just talked to and puts it in a different category. And you instill it and you teach it to your staff, which is what we're doing. So they believe they're part of a story that takes their patients and transforms them. And if you can be transformative in life, this translates to not only what we're doing here, but outside of our business, they'll stay. Let me give you an example. He gives an example of the book of hiring somebody, right? And they come in, they've got a good resume, decent resume, and you tell them and you give them incentives. They hit all those incentives. They're really good. They work with you for 4 or 5 years. They even achieve certain goals. It tells the story. You bring them in, you tell them what the salary is, where they're going to work, where their desk is. They watch a sexual harassment video for 2 hours, and then they're off, right? And they do all the right things and they achieve. They're pretty good at what they do, but 4 or 5 years later, they get a better offer and they're gone. There's no narrative. They don't have a purpose. They don't feel like they're really changing people's lives. And the point is that if you can get your team to have that narrative, that they're part of a story as a guide that's helping people transformationally. And as a surgeon, it's easy for me to grasp that because I think I've had the opportunity and the blessing to do that. So it's a way to keep employees. It's a way to keep morale up. It's a better way to market. And so I'm just throwing that out. You can try it. It's no cost. You ought to look at that.
I love it. I mean, it says in a much clearer voice, something I think about often, which is helping our team and of course, my family and my relationships and myself, just about purpose, right? And having opportunities to grow. And I love the saying, when you're not growing, you're dying. And it's like, I think it really gives me a way to clarify that and can help each team member, because they may have slightly different purposes within the whole team's purpose or vision. But I love that. I think
I'm going to leave you with one more thing. And so if you're trying to help your patient, there's 3 levels. One is external, which is easy. You're trying to make their skin look better, or you're trying to, fight off aging. But if you'll tell them that, you might get their attention. But what you'll really get their attention, if you can figure out what their internal, what is your hero's problem? Your hero's problem is their skin looks bad and they're aging and they're fearful, they're embarrassed, they're whatever. But internally, it's that, what is it causing? It's causing a lack of confidence. It's confusion. It's fear. It's embarrassment. It's all of those things. And if you can hit that, that's great. And then the philosophical part, if you can hit that, then you've hit a home run. And that is, every person deserves to feel good about themselves or have joy in life, whatever. It's kind of like Luke Skywalker externally had a problem with the Death Star. And so he fired the laser into thing, and that was his problem. He needed to get the laser into that little hole so where he could kill the Death Star. And then the internal thing is that he was overcoming in doing that and destroying the Death Star, he overcame his internal doubts about his age and was he really a Jedi and all that kind of thing. But the reason that the Star Wars is the biggest movie chain in history is because good triumphed over evil.
For listening to the Making a Multi-Million-Dollar Medspa podcast. We are honored to have the opportunity to support your practice. If you like this podcast, we would love it if you left a review. Ratings and reviews allow more practices and industry professionals to find us. If this episode has inspired you, share it with a friend. Together, we can empower our community through continuous learning. We truly value your support of the podcast.
I mean, does that entice you enough to read the book? It's really crazy.
Oh, I'm in. I mean, I feel like I could have like already Amazon Primed it, but I was just so into the conversation that I haven't even tried, but you know, it will be done by the end of the day.
Yeah. But I think that's a pearl. It's worth spending time on, because I think that's a pearl. People are coming here going, how can I get an advantage? I think you ought to read that book, develop your culture. If we don't talk about anything today, it'll make your clinic run and hum, and we spend a lot of time on it, but it's really important.
I love it. You know, it always draws me back to, you know, when people say, or when you ask somebody, you know, what is your goal? And, or, you know, their main thing is like, let's say it's to buy this car or to have this money. And, you know, and that's what they're calling success. You know, I want to be successful, but really it's like, how does that make you feel? Like, what are you really after? You know, is it feeling loved? Is it feeling appreciated? Is it feeling like you know, there's so many things. It's the feeling that they're after, but they aren't connecting those dots.
Totally.
And so I love that stuff, Jay.
I know. We're gonna have to have two more iPods. We've gotten off two more podcasts. So, yeah.
Oh, we should just do a whole different topic, a kind of podcast just on growth and life and purpose.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So just kind of thinking about back to the culture and management and looking how you've stepped away from, you know, a big practice and now doing your, you know, your own practice. You know, what maybe one of your biggest learning moments or one of your biggest challenges or both, anything that you want to share with that part of your.
Yeah. Well, I think that the one thing that I did for many, many years was I was a busy plastic surgeon. I benefited from that. And if you're a plastic surgeon and you can delegate and you have this whole group of people coming to you and you're a good surgeon, then, and you tell them to go over and talk to, you know, I had one esthetician and one injector, and the injector was Steph, and who managed my practice, managed that part of it. I hardly ever walked back there. It was low hanging fruit. I made a couple $100,000 a year and didn't put any effort into it whatsoever. And it was just low hanging fruit. I was making a good living over here, whatever. As you get older and you want to retire and whatever. And one of the things that, you know, what we do often is that if we hire somebody as a manager, they also have to earn their salary at the same time. And I think the person, honestly, that convinced me of that was Matt, that you need a manager that's really, really good and they're worth their salt. If they're worth their salary, don't distract them from that. And I came to that way late, like in 2007 or 8. And I would tell you that, you know, you can't hire a, you know, big time manager with 1 or 2 employees. I get that. But as soon as you get big enough, the management is super important. And if you spend time on your med spa, it can be a really big, nice business. That's why we're seeing such growth in the industry and we're seeing consolidation and things like that. So take management seriously. And the one thing that I would say is manage based on data. You know, one of my favorite sayings is emotions should not determine your truth. Truth should determine your emotions. So data. It's so easy. One of the things that I know you and I have enjoyed over the last year or two since we've been involved with CPP is we can benchmark 20 clinics here and there's 24 in Canada or something like that. We can, you know, I get a report. It is so easy. See, I want simplicity. When you see what your retention rate is, what your one and done rate is, how many new patients are walking in there, what the ROI per room is, per esthetician, that's not a burden. That just, I mean, you got to, you know, you can be an idiot and not pay attention to that, or you can go, well, this is the answer. There's no question. 2 + 2 = 4. I need one more esthetician, or I can't afford to buy that laser yet, or whatever. And so management and manage with data, not emotionally. And then the thing that separates every med spa, the successful one from non-successful, in my opinion, it's probably not the technology. Technology will make it 1,000 times better. It's service. You know, it separates, you know, service and making patients feel like they're heard, and relationships. it's so there's a lot of people that cut hair, but I mean, the one that cuts hair and also is your friend is the one you're going to, right? I think I wouldn't know that.
Absolutely. I'm like,
terrible analogy, but that's what I've heard. That's what I've heard. And so I think service and culture and management, it's all it's just really important. And so that's why, you break down in Mint, I know the various aspects of management and administration and all the details and the execution piece of that, whether you do year events or sales or the pros and cons of all that, and even all those things. So I think it's really important, and I think it's once you achieve a certain level, there's a hesitancy to hire that manager, because how am I going to pay for $100,000 salary? But boy, when you achieve a certain level, hiring the right manager she'll pay for that, or he'll pay for that in spades.
And we have seen that over and over, when finding the right manager and then deciding to bring on a full-time marketing director was a big step for us. I mean, we really pushed that one out.
Yeah.
And then once we did, it was like, how did we live without Karen?
Yeah.
And then bringing on, then we were like, well, we need somebody to support our manager, but we kept thinking, really, are we that big? And so then we brought on Tracy as a front desk manager, and she's taken on so many more responsibilities. I think that one of the things that we've also loved with joining and working with you and the CPP family is just having some of those resources that we didn't have before. A little shout out to CPP, because that data that we were getting, we thought we had good data until we saw the real data.
No question. And when I negotiate with it, kicking and screaming, old dog like I am, I just said, look, if you guys can't make my life simpler, I can't do this. I'm just too old and tired. I can't get up with chaos and make my life. I can't do more. I need to do less so that I can, my passion, it's not hard saying no to bad things. It's hard saying no to good things so you can do the best thing. And we need to be doing the best things, how we're wired, what we're passionate about, and find other people to do those things that need to be done. And so I think CPP has clearly made my life simpler by giving me data where my decisions are like that now, because they're just right in front of me and they're easy, and all those services. And so I think we've beat that horse pretty much. But if people, I know the other thing that you just got through saying, I needed to hear, because, as I'm looking at, I have a great manager, and we're growing, but it's probably that time, there's a certain level where you're going to have to take a little hit in your net for a while to hire that assistant, so that my manager can stop doing payroll and she can start making sure that all of these things that the front desk should be doing on a regular basis are getting done, that the projects, the focuses, this month where we're looking at one and dones, and somebody's got to manage that and remind every person, and it's super valuable. And so I think we're about ready to hire an assistant for her, because I think we need it. And I wouldn't have done that 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago, because I'm just worried about that. But you've got to, spend a little money to make money.
It's kind of what you said earlier, that you need to look at your business as it is now, but you can't just look at the business now. You need to look at the business of the future.
Totally.
Whether it's the overall culture and idea of what you want it to be, or the growth and where you want it to go.
Yeah.
And, sometimes I think we get stuck up in the day-to-day and the current business we're running, but it's really got to also it's so important that we look to the business of the future, I think.
Yeah.
But,
I agree.
so, just kind of looking at some of the other fun topics we thought, we kind of discussed talking about, anything else that pops up that you want to talk about? I mean, I definitely think if there's one thing that the question I always like is there something that you used to think was really important, whether it was in your practice, at home, your personal life, whatever it may be, just kind of something you felt like was really important that you used to do, and you just feel like it's just not that important anymore?
Let's see here. I think that one of the things that I think it's interesting how It's going to sound a little crazy, but one of the things that back in the 90s, it was so important to be first in on the technology. Like because you get the newest technology, and then everybody in town comes and gets. I can remember when the microdermabrasion machine was like amazing technology, right? And that we were the first one to have it, and so you get first in before everybody else gets it, and that was one of the advantages that I had. And then we were the first ones to have Fraxel, the first ones to have cool sculpting, the first ones to have all this stuff. And there's an advantage in that. There's no question. But now there's so much technology, and the new things come and go and whatever, and they're great. But I think that I also have a whole different, and maybe it's taken 20 years to get enough technology where that's not important anymore. But I think that making wise choices and not being too aggressive, and changing my focus totally to, I don't want to sell my patients a treatment. I want to sell them an experience, and I want to treat them. I want to have a long-term treatment plan for them. It's a comprehensive analysis and treatment plan. I want a patient for life. And the technology, most people don't even know about what the technology is. I want to create an experience and be their guide so that I can lead them to success long-term. And it's not a one technology. And this is coming from arguably, I'm a tech geek, and I get all the technology. And I would tell you that you'll do better with technology because it gives value. You want a technology that can deliver a consistent result safely. There's some technologies that will achieve a power that you can achieve a result, but not safely. That's probably the biggest difference between good and dangerous technology. But technology, as much as I say that, it's really more about creating this environment where they can they show up to the gym 3 times a week, not once a month, and they end up getting fit over time. So that's something I thought was important. I don't think it's important anymore. And
one other thing you said earlier was that back in the 90s, you used to not do combo therapy.
Hey listeners, don't forget to submit your questions for the second part of this series. All of your questions will be answered by the guests on the second part of their episode. Okay, get back to listening.
Yep. Yeah. And you know what? Right.
And so now, we talked earlier about, all this combination therapy you're doing, and it kind of feeds into that, because before you were the first one to get it. And now maybe as a new clinic, a small clinic that doesn't have, the funds and backing like some of the bigger guys do, maybe it's better to wait a minute. And then also like now, back then you were doing you weren't doing combo therapy, but now we like layer everything.
Right. Totally. And the difference is this. It's pretty simple. What was different? So you look at what we did. If you look at the history of this, I have an unusual seat looking back over this 30 years. And basically what happened is that, what changed, there was that laser hair removal came out, which was probably one of the first things. It was microdermabrasion and laser hair removal. And then the thing that, people started having IPLs. Luminous had an IPL and the whole thing, and I used to teach that too. And it was a pretty dangerous IPL device, to be honest with you. But the point is that then where Contour came out, or not Contour, it wasn't called Contour, but it was laser resurfacing, in San Francisco in about 1994 and 95. And so my life changed forever. And then then the complications started coming with CO2, and it was a weird time around 2000 when everybody changed to this non-ablative, they would try to tone your skin with Pulse Dye, anything they had in the corner, Pulse Dye. Then they came out with Cool Touch, which was total, oh my God, terrible. Cruel Touch. It was painful. And none of them really, honestly, Kathy, none of them really worked well. And so when you added Cool Touch to a PDL to something, the reason it didn't work, and everybody was saying, oh my God, when you add them together, that's how you get around this. And we were looking at the before and afters, and oh my God, is there, I can't tell the difference between the before and afters. It's because 0 + 0 + 0 is 0.
Yeah.
But now you've got this great technology options. You've got BBL Hero that goes after browns and reds. You've got Moxie that polishes the skin. And we combine Moxie. We've talked about it, but we just spent a lot of time on radio frequency microneedling. Well, radio frequency microneedling, I think Genius is really, the best one right now for me in my hands. I haven't seen one better, but it still takes 3 months to see a result, and there's delayed gratification. So we add.
Can I pause you just for 1 second? I'm sorry, you said. I'm going to move us. I don't know what's going on, but they're doing something outside the window. So I'll just edit this part out and pick up and move all few doors down. So you'll get to see a little bit of our space.
Okay, good. We've been going too long, haven't we?
I think this is awesome. I'm okay with it. I mean, we'll just kind of maybe a couple more things and then we'll finish up.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that's the beauty of these, is that really there doesn't have to be.
And I'm looking at your questions, and we really have covered most of it.
Yeah, I think so. Just maybe in a different format.
Yeah, great.
Let me shut my door here. Okay. Sometimes you just got to go with the flow.
No, it's like it hasn't happened today, but it seems like my landscapers, my yard guys know exactly every time I'm getting on a Zoom and they're blowing leaves right outside the window when I'm doing a Zoom.
Well, we're still, doing touch-ups and things like that. And it's like they've got a saw going.
There you go.
Okay. All right. So you can see me and hear me. I look like I'm frozen on my screen.
Yeah, it's frozen on my screen too. You are.
Okay. I don't know what's going on with that. Let me see. Okay, I'm going to pause the recording and start it again.
Okay.
Okay. Well, we'll just jump back in and we'll fix it later.
Then what are we going to do?
I said, we'll just jump back in and we'll fix it later.
Okay. So we'll do, you can see me.
I can see you. I don't know why it's frozen. Maybe it'll jump back in here in a minute.
Okay. All right. So,
so
to continue what we're talking about, the combination therapies work, I think, well now is because we just have a really lot of great therapies. They're never going to compare to the tightening you get with surgery, or they're never, those are always more predictable, but 90% of the people don't want surgery. So how do we combine this to get maximum results? So for example, we combine, it's pretty rare these days that we would do an isolated hero. We usually combine it with Moxie. It's pretty rare that we never do a radiofrequency microneedling without a Moxie. And the reason we can do it with Genius is because Genius actually affects the deeper dermis. We haven't touched the upper dermis because it does what it says it does. So we put Moxie with that. Patients see an immediate result within a week, and they calm down and they wait for the thing to happen. So those are just one example of these combination therapies. We do Halo. I had one the other day. I had a Halo Moxie, and I told the girl, I went in, I got a consultation, and they said, I thought they were going to say Hero Moxie. And Nancy said, you need a Halo Moxie. And I said, wow, why do you think I need that? One, you apparently don't look in the mirror enough. You need
Come
that.
on.
And two, we don't get you in here that often, and I don't know when you're going to come back. So I want to give you that thing. So I did that. I went through that. We combined all that, and I had more downtime than some of the other treatments. but the results were amazing. And so combining those things, for somebody, and for me, it was great because I did have 10 days, I did have a week, and so why not combine all those things? And it didn't work for every patient, but we've just got so many options combining all of those things, even treating people with, we don't do it all the time, but if you're down, with cool stepping for 30 or 45 minutes, then, you can come in there and get an injection, or you can do other things, and you have to be efficient, but it's good for business. And so, honestly, even when I do a laser resurfacing, if I do an aggressive laser resurfacing, I typically won't use one laser. I'll use the laser for the wrinkles on the mouth, the contour. I'll do fractional if they have acne or around the eyes. And, if they have some reds, we'll add the BBL Hero or the BBL. And so it's just, we have better technology. And now when we add 25% effectiveness plus 25 plus 25, we get a much better result quicker. And so I think that, I'm thinking about who's listening to this, and for the clinic who's just starting out, we've already given them how to start. But once they start stacking technologies, it becomes exponentially more effective when you can combine those technologies.
It does. And I think it's just really sitting down and thinking about, how to layer them safely. So what goes first, which of course, a little shout out to Mint. We cover all of that in the Mint e-courses, but also then just how to keep them comfortable, which you've given some great pointers with that. Right. And, you can even take topical off zone by zone if you're going to be layering something like, BBL, Genius, and Moxie, or right. Even Genius, so I think that there are definitely ways that if you're just using topical, a Zimmer is really helpful, the Zimmer cooler, and I'll use that even during a Genius treatment, when needed. Moxie too, I'll grab my Zimmer just to let them hold it, give them something to do. Right. I think there are ways that we can keep them comfortable, but
That does remind me of one question you asked me that we haven't covered, is what are you doing now that you weren't doing 5 or 10 years ago? And one of the things that we're doing now that we weren't doing even 3 or 4 years ago is we're treating necks much more effectively. The hero, because of the rapid rate, we're heating that tissue, and it's safe. So you can treat a neck that we haven't been able to really treat safely. I mean, before, how do we get there? Fractional ablative, fractional non-ablative. I mean, it's a little bit more dangerous on the neck. So we start with the Hero Moxie, and talking about this long obedience in the same direction, you have to set expectations, but we're seeing some improvements on the neck that would have never seen before. And in my practice, it's really helpful because I've got hundreds and hundreds of women that I've made their face look great from the contour, but their neck, I just couldn't get there safely enough to do it. So we're treating many more necks. You add radio frequency with that, with Moxie, all those things. We're really seeing much greater improvement on the necks and chests. And that's what women want, because even if they're not showing off a lot, everybody has a little V-neck. And so to get that acceptable and match their face, huge improvement, in my opinion.
Agreed. I feel like it is one of those areas that for years, we've tried so many different things, and really with very little success. So it's nice to have treatments now that are safe. And, in Kansas and Missouri, estheticians can do BBL and Moxie and Genius. And I know that varies from state to state, but, we can do those treatments and layer them safely and get these really nice results.
Right.
So, well, just a couple of things. One I wanted to put just to mention is that Dr. Jay Burns is going to be doing the next series of Making of a Multi-Million-Dollar Medspa podcast coming up here. This is just the first of the season. And so he's going to take over and bring on some of the superstars of our industry. And so I'm really excited about that. So make sure you check out the full season with Dr. Jay Burns here at Mint. And then I have to go back to the FOR. I'm going to turn it to FOJ, friend of Jay, because seriously, being your friend over the years has meant so much to me. So just really grateful to have spent so much time building up the e-courses together, working on CPP. And so if you want more knowledge and to learn more from Dr. Burns, check out our resurfacing course at mintaesthetics.com. It's in the premier e-course. You don't want to miss that. If you're doing laser resurfacing, he goes through all of the, patient consultation, selection, complications, which is just hugely valuable. So make sure you check that out. I have to give a shout out for our own
our
Sure.
own course we have going on. So
yeah. Kathy, every person that we hire, we make them go through the Mint courses. And, so if you have turnover, we've told you today how to limit your turnover. But if you do have someone that has to move or come in, training them is a huge burden. And so Mint's a way that we use it. We use it on every single patient we hire, or every single staff person we hire.
Oh, I love that. Well, I mean, similar to you, as we hire, it's all the time it takes to get, especially a nurse that has zero experience in aesthetics going. The whole goal was really twofold. One, how do we onboard more efficiently so that they build that confidence faster? And then of course their book of business builds faster and they're happier, their clients are happier, the business is happier. But then working with so many clinics around the country, especially the small ones that are just brand new and they don't have you in the office to go to ask, how do I do this?
Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, I've really loved building that part of our business, especially getting to work with so many people like you.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
So, yeah. So anything else you want to say before we end today?
No, I've just piggyback on what you said is that I think that that we're going to introduce, what we're trying to do on the podcast is to, we want to have all kinds of ideas and everybody has different ideas. And so I'm going to run through, we talked about everybody that was on that advisory board. Those are the giant and the pillars that have been here for the last 30 years. And we've got young people that are going to replace us one day. And we're going to try to systematically go through all of the opinion leaders. We're going to feature my daughter, who's a dermatologist, is killing it here in Dallas and making me look bad. And
the derm and plastic. Go ahead.
Plastic, right? But I think that'll be a fun. She's got a fun personality, super bright. But it would help people who are like her, who are starting out. How did they do it? How did they build their practice up? We'll talk about that. We've got other KOLs that we're going to talk about, and we're going to systematically work that through several a year and just keep doing it as long as you'll have me. And that's a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And thank you all for tuning in today and listening. Don't forget to like or leave a comment, share. We want to connect with you. So again, thanks for tuning in and we'll see you next time.
Great. See you later.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. We would love it if you left a review to help other providers and clinics find us. Also, if you want more information about anything we discussed in this episode, check out our show notes. Until next time, this has been the Making a Multi-Million Dollar Medspa podcast.